Okay, week 20, the division round, we got Buccaneers against the Lions. So Detroit is favored by 6.5 points. I think Detroit is going to win, but I don't think they're going to cover the spread. I'm going to take Tampa Bay with the points here. So the model just raw has Detroit at 64% chance to win, which comes out to about a 3.5 4 point spread. And then it's a pretty consistent over here when you look at the box plot on the right, 28 to 24. So the model is calling for about a 4 point spread. When I do a Bayesian adjustment, the yellow means it's just a moderate adjustment, but adjust it down to about to a 2 point spread. Overall, and so let's take a look at the reason why that is. So the model has been over projecting Detroit on their their scoring differentials, and then it's been underestimating uh, uh, Tampa Bay. Is really what that boils down to. And so with that, it basically means that the model hasn't quite been hitting on either of these teams. So a little bit of adjustment there. Says it should be closer, which the one thing I'll say is both of these teams I thought looked good. I thought Detroit beat a very good Rams team and were able to outplay them pretty consistently throughout the game there, and held on to for a pretty commanding win. Never once did I feel like the Rams had it and lost it. I feel like Detroit had that the entire time, all the way through the end. And then Tampa Bay looked really good against, admittedly, a poor Philadelphia Eagles team. So the last 6 games, Philadelphia did not look like the Philadelphia of the first 10 or 11 games. So not really sure know what to make of that. But the fact of the matter is Tampa Bay certainly showed that they've got some spunk and some life in that team. Uh, and quite frankly, I think there's certainly a time period where you had a 4 game losing streak here, to where I think people had largely written off Baker Mayfield and most of that team, but they were able to turn it around, get some wins, um, and I don't really look at any of their victories this year and say, hey, they looked really good against, I don't know, Dallas or Kansas City, but they were able to scrap together wins when they needed them, and that's really what it takes, and make it in, and then they looked really good against Philadelphia. So let's take a look at some of the performance charts here. So one of the things you'll notice is both of these teams are going to be much more pass heavy. Uh, the one thing I will say is, particularly watching the Lions, is they do a lot of RPO, which is going to help them out a lot. And so both of these teams are going to have a modest rushing game. But again, anytime a team is putting up about 130 yards, 150 yards of rushing for Detroit, that's what it's looking like that they're calling for. That often is going to spell really good things. But you got more passing yards over here for Tampa Bay. When we come over here to the bottom right, that explosiveness, plays for more than 20 yards, is one of those things that's going to help. Both teams are explosive, but you got just a little bit more down here for Tampa. That makes a difference. Also, Tampa Bay, they're doing a better job protecting Baker Mayfield, and that's what's leading to certainly better ball control, fewer interceptions. You see some of these streams up here. Jared Goff, he can be a very streaky kind of a quarterback. Where he can be really good, really good, really good, and then suddenly you're like, who's he throwing it to? And if it's not going out of bounds or to nowhere, it's going to the other team. And so but Baker Mayfield can kind of be the same way. So I think anyone who's watched either one of those has certainly seen that. We come over here to the bottom left. So you got 0.4 points again for Tampa. And so as I look at that, um, they're you got a lot of distribution here when you see that. You got a big upside and some downside there as well. So the league average is right around 24 points, and their average is at 20 for Tampa Bay. But their defense is looking pretty tight, pretty consistent, and holding teams to right around that 20-point mark. So then when you come over here for Detroit, you definitely have some skewing up here as well. You got a big deviation. You've got an average that is a few points above the league, and a median which is well above the league at 30 points. But their defense has given up right around the league average. So that I point that out because what it really says about a defense, which I don't show on the chart here, is how does a team do when it comes to stopping the opponent when it comes time to score. If you can, if the opponent gets into the red zone and walks away with 3, that's pretty darn good. If you can give up, if your opponent starts at the 20 and you give up 50 yards and keep them at a field goal range, or the very edge of field goal range, we're not getting those. That defense is doing its job. And that's what we see from Tampa Bay, and we haven't seen, at least in the record so far, from Detroit. So Detroit's strength is really putting the ball in the end zone, and Tampa is keeping that team out of the end zone and then being opportunistic to score with some of those big plays and getting some wins. So with that, I do expect this to be a closer game. But I would expect, much like what the Rams game was, I would expect that Detroit is going to be able to hold on before a closer game than what that 6.5 point spread has. So if you like what you listen to, click like and subscribe. If you've got a question, comment, drop me a note. Thank you.